I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity for Marriage. And I think this is going to be part 3. Man, are we having a hard time or what, Rosanna, on, figuring conflict resolution? Like, how long does it take? What's your longest fight taken you? And we're like, 40 years. And
Yeah.
so, I love the feedback, where people like that podcast didn't work. It didn't work. And it's like, okay, I love that. So we have resolving a conflict part 1 on part 2. And it's like, yep, that didn't. So now we're in part 3. And so I think that, so that's one of the topics that we're going to have today. Continue. We'll beat this bad boy until we get it. And then another is what happens when change is happening, you can't control it. And then another was, how do you reignite things? And so I think all of these are all mushed together. And so I think understanding the difference in our personalities and what creates pain. And so the analytic don't like when things are not done improperly. The driver out of control, expressive, boring, or not fun, and amiable conflict. And then the past, the future, short term, and the present. Another piece that might be helpful is the Jerusalem Peace Project that we had, like 7 Palestinian kids, and then, 7 from Israel, and then 7 from the Indian reservation. They all stayed at our house. This is a model that we created for that project. And so 4 steps to conflict resolution. So step 1 is to acknowledge the hurt, to see it. And so each of the 4 personalities will go and get hurt for different reasons. So the analytic becomes like a sniper, and they're hurt when things are done wrong. The driver becomes an attacker, and they hurt when things are out of control. The expressive, they become dramatized, and when things are boring or not fun. And the amiable becomes like poison when there's conflict. So the first thing is acknowledge the hurt. And it's hard because often hurt is like an onion, and there's layers of hurt. So it's something that, we went out on a date night last night, and maybe Rosanna didn't do the planning that could have been done. And so it didn't blow up, but, we decided. And what's nice about being in this season of life is because it didn't really work out great last night. It was okay, but not great. So we have another date night tonight. And so Rosanna responded really well last night. She didn't get defensive. She didn't get angry. She didn't get upset. She didn't attack me. She didn't minimize it. She didn't do the 90s. She didn't do any of that. She just kind of absorbed it and acknowledged it and said, hey, I messed up. I've messed up in the past. And she allowed me to be frustrated. And the 3 elements to frustration is how hard you work, how much you care, and your level of expectation. And so what most people do is when they get frustrated, they work less, they care less, and lower their expectation of themselves, systems, and others. What I seek to do is when I get frustrated, I work harder, I care more, and I increase my expectations of myself first, the systems that in our marriage, and then Rosanna next. And so I just needed a good night's sleep. I just needed to recover. It's like, it's just, you know what? It's okay. And in the past, she might not have responded. She might have responded in defensive or explaining herself. She did a little bit of that, which didn't help, but I'm just like, whatever. Rosanna, your thoughts or suggestions?
Um, well, it's interesting is because sometimes you say I don't think about things in the past, but I had thought about another time that we went to tried to go to a movie with all the kids, and we got into this argument on the way there, and we didn't end up seeing the movie with the kids, and they reminded me of that, and so I remembered that on the way to see the movie with you. And I'm like, well, I don't want to get in an argument, so I tried to understand where you were coming from, and not to get it to the point where we were both angry with each other.
Yeah. So the first thing is to acknowledge the hurt. And then the second is to feel that person's hurt. So one of the hardest things to do is when we're hurt, we perceive by somebody. It's hard to feel their hurt. And they may be hurt by us or they may be hurt by somebody else. And then here, so it's see, feel, hear, and do. So see the hurt, feel why and how it hurts, hear, like for me as a driver, an analytic, like things happen, it's just life. But if it continues to happen, that bothers me. So apologies don't really mean a lot to me. When somebody says they're sorry, it's like, okay, what I'm looking for is our sorry means it's not going to happen again. Or each time it does happen, that person or myself are going to go ahead and work harder. Like if I say I'm sorry and it just keeps happening again, we talked some last night about the core, fixing things at the core, not at the symptom level. And then, do, say, mean, I will work to not do it again. So I think a lot of times people are conditioned to say, I'm sorry. And they don't really mean that it's not going to happen again. They just, I don't know. It's like to get out of a situation, so sometimes people will say, I'm sorry. And then it's a way to flip it back on the person they've hurt. And so now that I said, I'm sorry, now you have to forgive me. You have to let it go. And it's like, do I? Like, like I'm fine now. Just there's no consequence. There's no pain. I get no time to, like really? Like it's like, you know, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things that flood to mind, and I don't want to beat a dead horse. So to prevent conflict, go to the person who you hurt, you have issue with, not go to others. I think, Rosanna asked me on the walk this morning, what was it, Rosanna? If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
If you had to do it, if you had to raise the children all over again, what would you have done differently? Yes.
That was interesting. See, on our walks, Rosanna's trying to come up with every day one deep question. And that means a lot to me, like a lot. So, her effort in doing that, her effort in doing that just means a lot to me. It is unbelievable how that just heals my soul, my heart. Like last night, wasn't happy with how it happened, and then there was some explanation, and then there was some delusional stuff in there, and I'm just like, really? you know, but I probably said 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times, you're going to get mad. You just will. You're going to hurt. You're going to make it. You didn't plan well, and you've done this before, and you're going to get mad at me for you not planning well. That doesn't seem to make sense. So and then a little later, you're going to get mad at me. Like, she's going to get mad. She just will. And she didn't. And I wonder if me telling her that helps her to put it in check, because it's almost like in the past, I feel, and my feelings are important, I guess, I feel that she's always going to get mad. Like, if I don't respond to her, like, she'll make a mistake, she'll mess something up, and if I don't respond to her just the way she wants me to respond to her, then she's going to be mad at me. And if she gets mad at me, it doesn't go well, I don't think, for either of us, because I won't back down. I'll just either get angry with her or look like I'm angry with her. So it's like, I could be angry with you about this and this and this and this, but I'm choosing not to be angry. I won't be angry. But if you get angry with me, you know what? I may change that choice. I'm not saying this is the good thing. I'm just saying, for us in our marriage, for me, it seems to work. I'd like it to be some other way, but it doesn't seem to work any other way. Elaine, questions or thoughts?
Yeah. I guess for me, you're always going to have that time when something isn't planned out exactly the way one person in the relationship thinks. Um, but you're always going to have to both stop and gather yourselves together and realize, okay, so if it didn't work this way, then what's plan B? How are we going to put plan B into action so that both of us have an even ground here, that not one feels that it's all one's fault or the other's fault. um to make it work, it's gonna have to be both, and we can't let anger get on top of us. We're gonna have to say, okay, so plan one didn't work, so what do you have for plan B? Can we make plan B work? So last night, I don't know, what the planning or whatever didn't work, but say, the timing of the movie wasn't planned out correctly. So was there another movie that you could have watched in that time frame, or could have you gone to do something else then if the movie wasn't an option? Or try and, I guess, in my perspective, try and find an even ground for both and make it work that way.
Nice. I think like, people tend to be black and white, so people tend to be black and white. It's my fault or your fault, but that's not how it is. You know, it's probably never 100% one person's fault, but I do think it's often more than 50-50. Now, even in that, I'm frustrated, but I'm not angry with Rosanna. I'm just frustrated. But I know in the end that she struggles with this stuff. She just struggles with it. It is frustrating to me when she doesn't struggle with planning for her garden and some of the other types of things, or the kids or whatever. So it seems like when she wants to plan well, she does, and she makes things happen. And when she doesn't, she doesn't. I do think that taking ownership is, and then how do we prevent it from continuing to happen? I think in a marriage, it's like plaque on your heart or your teeth, it builds up. And after 39
True.
years of marriage, it's like, and so what you said, I think, was really good. Plan B, look at the other pieces of it. So the big issue was she didn't reserve seats until we were on the way there, and she got the last 2 seats, which are in the front row. If she explains her way of thinking, why she did it, why she didn't do it, this and this does not help me at all. And I don't think from a brain science perspective, it's healthy for her. Because I think when people explain why they did something wrong, it tells the brain to do it the same thing again and again. I'm not saying what I think works for our marriage actually works, because it might not, but it seems to me it works better than the alternative. And I'm not saying that what works well for me or our marriage would work well for your marriage. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying here's experiences that we've had. As it relates to when things change and you don't have control over that, Melissa, could you go ahead and maybe share, a little bit more context on that?
And what specifically?
Just, I'm not sure, if it's an example of it, or is it big picture, little picture? Is it, it's not real clear on what that means to me.
Okay. I'm not sure what you're asking. Sorry.
So what I can do is change. When I can't control change, can't control it. Okay. Well, if you can't control something, then it's probably not good to put a lot of energy into it. Just go with the flow.
Yeah, but how do you have the patience to just go with the flow, especially when you're not built to go with the flow?
Well, it might be you're not built with it, or it might be just the flesh nature. And so if you don't go with the flow, is it going to make it better or worse by getting all anxious or whatever you're doing?
It could go both ways.
Okay. So that's the key right there. You think that when you're not in control, if you go ahead and don't have the patience, you think it helps the situation. And
Not necessarily.
sometimes you might be right. Sometimes you might be wrong. You can think of childbirth, or I can think of your childbirth and how much trauma it was to me. I don't remember which one it was, Elena. I think it was Elena.
Where I almost died.
Yeah, and Micaiah too, where, it's going to be painful. Like, it's just going to hurt, honey. It's going to hurt. And so, when you're in labor, it's going to be painful, but we can make it worse. We can make it harder. It can be a lot tougher. And so I think in conflict in a marriage, the same thing. It's going to be tough, but we can make it tougher. And so if you have expressive driver, amiable, analytic, if you have the expressive driver and, there's, things are out of control, and it's because our perception is because the amiable or analytic didn't listen or didn't do what we wanted them to do, or we tried to warn them and it just happened. How we respond to them can make the situation better or make the situation worse. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's not the same way all the time. So there are times that that we think how we're responding is making it better, but it's really making it worse. Or we think it's making it worse, but it's really making it better. So being humble and understanding what we think could be working in our marriage is not, what we think isn't working in our marriage could be working. We don't know, because when you look at the grid, the time grid, when you look at that, it can go ahead and it seems like it's working in the short term. Like, for example, when there's conflict and the amiable analytic will shut down, they won't talk. They won't do that because they think it's making it better. And it might feel better to them in the short term, but it might be explosive in the long term. Same thing with an expressive driver. They think blowing up, they think aggressively pursuing it, that type of thing. They think it's working, and it might actually work in the short term, but it might not work in the long term. And so understanding the spectrum and how we look at the past is really, really important. And understanding what we see in the past might not be what's really there, or not the whole picture for sure. Another question that came up is, how do you reignite it? When you go back to the model, again, it's like plaque in the heart. It builds up. And what's complicated is that often we don't know that it's building up. So we're upset about something, and we don't even know. We lash out at our spouse about something, and it's not even the thing we lashed out with. It's something else, and we may not even know it. And so was I on edge last night a little bit more because of the zoning thing I thought was going in a good direction. Now it might be a little dicey, probably. So it's almost like when you play video games, when you play internet games, war games, and you have health, and you have 100% health, and you get hit or you fall or something, and you go down and you're at 80, 70, 60. I think that we're not sensitive to that. And I could easily take out the situation, the frustration I have during the day, during work, working with other people, on my wife. And she could do the same to me. I think a lot of times, young husbands they don't understand how much energy young children take from the mom. So they're not aware. They're just clueless. Men are just absolutely clueless at how much energy. Now, those women right now are thinking, man, I love this guy. He understands us. I wish my husband was as understanding as Mark is. Likewise, I don't think young women understand how much an occupation, how much career, a business, working a job, how much that takes out of a man.
I agree.
And so I think, like with Roseanne and I, there's a lot of things in our marriage that have not gone so well. But that is one thing I think she and I excel at, have forever, where I will pour in as much as I can pour into the kids when I get home or when I'm around or I'm available. I mean, I remember when I would be on business trips and I would call her, and then I'd say, which of the children's giving you the biggest trouble? And then I would talk to them over the phone. So I'm like, when I'm gone, that creates issues. It was really cute. I mean, one of the cutest memories when we were rehabbing some property in Illinois, and Ira was talking to Elaine and saying, hey, looks like we may need to be here a day longer. Are you okay with that? And I mean, to feel the energy, and it was dark. I was just walking by and overheard. And I just had so much respect for both of them, because it's not easy. So I think I was very sensitive to Rosanna with the kids when they were younger, and I tried to play with as much, goof around, make sure that I supported her, make sure they knew that if they didn't obey her, when Dad's coming home, this is not going to go well. And I think that she was very understanding of how hard it was for me in business and running a business. And so I think, while we did a lot of things wrong, those are two things that over the years where I'm always seeking to say, do you need help? Do you need help? And she's become actually more appreciative of it now, thankful of it now, than she's been in the past. And I think she understands, hey, what he does is not easy. It's hard work. Jason, any questions, thoughts? Oh, on reigniting. So it's going back, and like one of the things that Rosanna is doing for me is she's going back to old hurts. How did that make you feel? How did you hurt? And so I don't know, that to me, it seems like now almost I can get, when you're in the battle and you're on the field, somebody dies literally, and you can't mourn it because you got a battle to fight. So now theoretically, I have a little more time and a little more emotion where I can go back and say, hey, that was really hard. And I'm not blaming her. Like when I look back on what we had to go through and what the hand that life gave us, it was not her choice and was not my choice. It just life gave us a tough hand. And what we had to do to deal through that, I think we're better because of it. So I think reigniting it is you can write down what really attracted you to your spouse at the beginning. These are the things I loved about my spouse at the beginning, and then try to focus in on those things. So I loved Rosanna, how she was giving, loving, gentle, kind. But when we got married, then all of a sudden people would take advantage of us and she wouldn't cover my flanks, or the kids would take advantage of her and that would impact me. So her strength became a weakness. What I loved about her became what I kind of hated or despised about her. So I think it's going back to the early years when we had it, and both being more sensitive to the others and being able to talk about that. I think that can reignite it. Jason, any other questions, thoughts you have?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Melissa, anything you got?
No, I think I'm good.
Elaine, anything you got?
No.
Rosanna, anything you got?
I think I would like to know Melissa, Elaine, and Jason's thoughts on the conversation that happened today and whether it helped them through whatever they were thinking.
So the podcast, the material we covered today, was this helpful, in what you guys were hoping to accomplish today?
Yeah, I think so.
Elaine?
I would say, yeah, it went a little deeper, but I would, yeah, definitely encourage you to go deeper yet still. I really agree with what you were saying on trying to explain Melissa things, and then the question Jason had to ignite it. That would be a good start to ignite it, but it would take a little bit more than just, or for us anyways, it took more than just that. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you said.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think. Sorry, I just walked in.
A lot of marriage is discipline and consistency. So we often do better, but we're not consistent in doing it. And so I think we need to go ahead and go part 4. So I think as we go deeper into the onion, as we layer it's hard work. It just is. It's not like there's not a quick fix. Not like you go to some marriage enrichment seminar. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Rosanna and I have done that. I think those are good, but it's in the trenches. Like, okay, I'm doing better. How do I maintain this? How do I not become lazy in these things? Or how do I not become entitled or self-righteous or a victim? So we look forward to part 4. Hopefully, to these build on. If you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300. Outside the U.S., 630-393. 9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.